So raise your hand if you've ever had a shrimp, little seafood critter. If you've had a shrimp in the United States, and probably in any part of the world, it might have been processed on one of Jay's machines. And on the second person is Dr. David Kelly. Now, we all owe this gentleman our sincerest gratitude because he is the founder of the Atlas Society. And without him, none of us would be here today. And they are going to speak on a very important project that they've been working on in their session. Now, everybody, on your tables should be one of these. Everybody grab one of these and hold it up in the air. This pamphlet is going to be your guide for this presentation. So everybody should have one of them. Everybody should have it out in front of them and follow along, especially if English isn't your first language. It's kind of nice to have it right there in front of you to keep tabs. So without further ado, let's introduce the next session, Happy Birthday Freedom, Unite for Liberty and Responsibility.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, well, it's terrific to be here, and I can't possibly condense the effort and the work that went into this because it's just too much in the time we have. But I'll try to give a little bit of a sense for what we were trying to do, and then David will hit a little bit of the genesis of it and the process we went through to generate the documents. Then I'll come back and talk about the challenge that we have today, which is to spread the virus. Before I start, I do want to just express how excited I am when I see young people engaging in the conversations we have and going through the journey that I went through. It's so exhilarating to watch that and to see people relive it. So this will be what I'll call an evolution of a lot of people, a lot of minds, a lot of work, and I'll cover some of those people as we get into this a little bit later. But the first purpose that's been a frustration of mine for pretty much my entire time in the objectivist movement has been that we focus on what we find problematic with other places. And you see that pervasive in society. You see it in politics. Everybody knows what they're against, and then they all focus in on what they're against. And the objectivist movement was divided by a focus on those who were religious and those who were secular, and the atheist community. And it was first and foremost the belief that the tree of liberty is faith versus force, and the tree of liberty is founded on the roots of reason. And the religious community had exactly the opposite view. And yet what we found as we went through is that atheists are very hard if they're on the progressive side, maybe the determinist side, whatever side they're on. It was very hard to find converts to liberty in that group. And yet in the Christian movement or in the religious movement, we would see many examples of people. So then we started to focus on what we share in common, and that's what this is about. This is about what we're for. So as you go through this document, as we go through it, we'll try to give you a sense for that, and then we'll try to challenge ourselves to say, what can we do if you think these ideas, think independently, what are we for, understand them first. I think it was Da Vinci who said, nothing can be loved or hated until it's first understood. And I think that's the challenge for each of us. And so many of the sessions we've had, the panel that started it and the Legos that Rob, it was all about the independent mind, the journey we're each on. So the challenges to each of us as we go through that. So with that, I'll turn it over to David. Let me actually get you to turn to one page first. In the opening page, what you see is that think of this pamphlet in the third paragraph. Think of this pamphlet as a thought starter, an intellectual stimulant. And if you take these ideas seriously, I think this will be one of the avenues we have for leading with what we're for as we go forward. So, David, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. This whole project, now called the Free State Association, Free Society Coalition, sorry. Originally, we just called it the Enlightenment Project. Because as we thought about it, and this goes back to a meeting a year and a half ago with Jay, John Aguilar-Lauro, another board member of the Atlas Society, and Jennifer, Jennifer Grossman, our leader, and we thought, we could be doing something to try to cross this divide. The thoughts that Jay just articulated were, the topic of conversation at that time. And so Jag had a day job and was busy on getting that done. It was also a night job and 24 hours sometimes. So we, John, Jay, and I carried forward. We set up a meeting and began thinking about what we should say, what we could do. Our goal was to see whether we could gather people who were pro-freedom from both a secular point of view and from a religious point of view. And we developed a day-long program, which we offered on, early April in 24. And we had about 50 people there, including leaders, some of the major other think tanks. Larry Reed, for example, who's now you'll see him on our board of advisors, and a number of others. And there was excitement about this. No one had reached out across this secular religious divide, and objectivists in particular, because we often had the view, which I believe was essentially Ayn Rand's view, that you can't compromise or make common cause with people who disagree on more fundamental principles. And secular versus religion is a more fundamental principle. So we didn't, it could only be accidental that there were Friends of Freedom from religious quarters. And we thought, well, maybe not. Maybe there are, as I would put it as an epistemologist, there are inductive grounds that support the idea of a free society of liberty, the Enlightenment ideas that were at the founding of the country, and for that matter, the founders of our institutions were themselves divided between more or less pretty much clearly secular people like Jefferson and more religious people. They were looking at reality directly and drawing their own conclusions from history and politics as well as from philosophy. So we said we could, if they can do it, we should at least try. And we did, and we encountered such enthusiasm that even among 50 people, but very select people, we just spent a day formulating the issues and questions. I had written up a very brief statement of what we were about, and we discussed that, added to it, and so I was overseeing what we now call the Philadelphia Declaration, the preamble, and the actual declaration. Do we have some of that's up on the screen? So these were the values we stand for, and I was the chief writer on this, but I had so many people adding great suggestions, including Jay, who, among all his unbelievable number of talents, is a great editor. And this was trying to articulate the values that we stand for despite differences between our grounding principles. And we had so much agreement on this. And people said, yeah, that's great. I'll sign that. And so we, many of those people who contributed the most and had something to offer are now on our advisory board, and they're listed in this document you see.
David, let me just comment that at that meeting, we had Acton and Beckett, two of the leading
Yes.
religion-based, and we had Christians for Liberty. We had a number of, and it was, I would say, 60% religious, and then the balance secular and atheist. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. So we continued to meet. We had subsequent meetings among 6 or 8 people at a time, which Jay organized, and then from that point on, we began the implementation phase, which has been slow. Has taken time, but has in organizational time horizons, it's been very quick. And so, Jay, do you want to pick it up there?
I think when we started with this, which was sort of inside the tent, focused from the objectivist frustration of not being able to reach new audiences, the same way we thought the value of the ideas justified. And then several people in our discussions had the idea, well, the 250th, what is it, the semi-quincentennial, is that what we call it?
Yeah, I skipped the word.
Anyway, that's going to be, can we link this into the principles of the founding, which all of us had already agreed on, and use this as a leverage moment? And that caused us to say, well, this goes well beyond just religious and secular. This goes to the values, the human nature, the fact that human nature is consistent and universal, and that upstream, and the ethics and the values upstream from politics, that we can then engage people in conversations leveraging off the principles of the founding of the United States and use the 250th. And then we connected with the Jack Miller Center, and they are having a major commitment to using, to educating in civics education and using the 250th to do that. And we said, well, let's leverage into that. So that's the genesis of this document. We are really excited about that ability. And it goes way beyond just the religious and the secular. It goes to what unites us across all these differences. And you'll notice that in every conversation you have with the right, the left, the whatever, they're very quick to be able to explain that they hate the other side. And hating the other side is not enough. And this point has been made, and I'll try to make it explicit. It was made in both the earlier sessions, that we have to actually promote what we're for and what unites us. And what came out of all of this was that free will, volitional choice, human agency, my life, my liberty, pursuit of my happiness, that's a core that we said we all agree on. And then responsibility for that is a part. So both the secular, religious, and pretty much most of the entree in, people believe that's true about human nature and human values, and I think that's what we are trying to leverage into. So it's really grown. We're excited about it. It's an easy entry, and some of the people that have joined, you can look at the back of the book, and you can see the advisory board. Bud is here. Bud was part of. Bud, can you raise your hand? Where are you? Yeah. Bud was one of the early conversations that I had when we were both frustrated that we both lived in worlds that many people were religious. And it was socially just not something that we were interested in fighting because it wasn't important. And some of the people that I respect the most, that are closest friends, are deeply religious. And some serious pains in the ass are atheists. So there's that starts you thinking about, well, what is common? What makes it? And it's people who are responsible for themselves, who make choices, who you can depend on, who are decent, benevolent, hardworking, sort of productive achievers. Those are the kinds of people that we all admire, that we all respect. So how can we unite around what's common? And that built into all of this. So that's what's so exciting about it. And let me name a few of the people who. So Jag fired the first shot. Jag, where are you? Yeah. When did you write the article that was the Wall Street Journal?
I think that was in 2017.
2017. So that was the title was Can You.
Can you love God and Ayn Rand? And it was essentially that when I was recruited to run the Apple Society, I discovered people that were huge Ayn Rand fans. And I also knew that they were very religious, like my friend Andy Puzder, who ran CKE Foods. And I said, well, oh gosh, didn't you know that she was an atheist? And they would say, well, yeah, that doesn't bother me. I don't really care for the labels, but her literature changed my life. And so that's why I said, not changing anything about objectivism and its fundamentals, metaphysics and epistemology, but just having a more welcome orientation to religious fans of Ayn Rand's literature rather than alienating them. We're a small enough group as it is, so I think a welcoming orientation is most productive.
Yeah. So that was an early shot, and then we had multiple shots along the way. John's stepson was seriously religious, admired his dad, who was I think a preacher, and admired John. And so, what was the commonality? And as we kept chipping away and unraveling it, we started to find it. I don't think we have any, and this is unusual. Inside of the objectivism. I don't think we have anyone inside of our group who disagrees with this approach and who doesn't see value in how we can, without compromising objectivism, use the essentials of these secondary values to promote it. And a few thank yous. Marcia Enright is here. Marcia attended that session in Philly and was a huge plus. So obviously, David, we had a Larry Reed who said, I love Rand, I'm very religious, and he's deeply philosophical. He says, and every time I write about Rand, he says some objectivist attacks me and accuses me of being the equivalent of a pedophile. So he says, I just stopped doing that. But Larry is he's a wonderful person and would share all the values, except he is religious, and that's where it sits.
And he's the author of the introduction in the beginning.
And Larry played large. He was he said we need to put together a pamphlet, we need to get the product, and it was all part of it. All of our scholars contributed one way or the other, either indirectly through, David said I'm a good editor. What he means is I'm a pretty good plagiarist. I just take stuff others come up with and integrate it. And Rob developed the first platform for the pamphlet, which was a big start. And we started thinking it was a big project. And Rob had so simplified it and connected it to the founders that it really moved into, yes, it was a big project, but much, much shorter than we expected. So I'd say the most important parts of this, David just covered with the difficulties that we went through in clarifying these pieces. If you look to the let's see where this is. Declaration questions. No. Sorry about this. There's on your right-hand side on the questions page is the what do you believe section. And I think if you look at these questions carefully, this is where the editing was, I think, most significant. We went through each of the statements in the Declaration, and we asked the philosophical questions upstream. So think about these, and then ask, what do you believe at the end of it? And again, first understand what the founders believed, and then ask yourself what you believe. With that, I'll move into the last part that we wanted to hit, which is that the game now is for us to promote this. And we think this is an entry tool that gets us into the 250th anniversary. It gets us into every audience that's trying to spend time celebrating America's founding. And if without this intellectual ammo, they will be celebrating democracy, which we understand has its challenges, not properly. They'll be celebrating American values, baseball, mom, apple pie, whatever. They'll be celebrating all of these things, never defining what they're for. And the Rand earlier, A is A, it's right behind me. A is A, existence exists, everything that exists is something in particular. Concept says, let's be really clear about what we're saying and what we're for and why. This is the module that we think is going to get well received and put into a lot of these education efforts that and each of us, if you see the opportunity, help us find places, spread this thing, and connect it. So that would be it. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. I think we're pretty much on time. Yeah.
I just want to make one more point, adding to Jay's remarks, that we have formed an organizational connection with the Donors Trust, some of you are familiar with, and they are helping us with some of the nonprofit side of setting up this new organization. And we have two really good assistants now who've been working tirelessly, Felissa Blazik and Josiah, right, at Donors Trust. And they've been carrying out, Felicity designed this, and the two of them helped produce it. So and Jay has been the person actually organizing all this. And so kudos to him and to everyone who's come on board to help. This is now a significant project, and we're gung-ho behind it, and we have now, what is it, I guess, really only 1 year to get this out in time for the 4th of July in 2026.
Excellent. Well, let's get a round of applause for this very, very exciting and ambitious initiative. So we have about 8 minutes for Q&A. We have some microphones around the room. We have a question up here in the front row. If someone's over here, Callista's coming right your way, so she'd be happy to get you that microphone.
I was just wondering, what denomination of Christianity do you feel like is most aligned with the objectivist philosophy? I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I feel like Catholics would be like the farthest away from it, from what I've seen. But do you have any idea of like which one you feel, even not in their own?
To everybody hear the question? Because asking a couple of atheists which denominations of Christianity are the ones that are most aligned. I grew up Catholic, and I was a serious Catholic, and I would say the Jesuit side of the Catholics were all about my individual soul, and that it was that any government force was robbing you of the opportunity to make a choice to save yourself, because the Catholics also had the question that if Hitler was sincere, then he's probably in heaven, so that you sort of get the mindset that it's all about you and your choice and your actions. But I don't think I'm qualified to comment on this one.
Well, I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing the question, but it can...
Which Christian denomination is most aligned with objectivist values?
Which Christian? Actually, we had a wonderful scholar who worked with me in starting the organization and spoke widely, George Walsh. He passed away some years ago. He knew he was an objectivist, but he knew so much about the history of religion. I used to tell stories. I could be walking somewhere, we'd be walking together somewhere in, say, Brooklyn, New York, and we'd see this church with some unknown name, the Church of the Holy, Sepulchre, Damascus, whatever. And something I'd never heard of, and a tiny little majority, and he would tell me the history, the doctrines of this sect, and the sexual habits of the founder, down the line. So I don't have that kind of knowledge. But there are some, the deists, which play a large role in the founding of the U.S., were maybe the closest. They believed in a God who was there and created the world and then sort of left it to the world to run itself, including humans. So that would probably be the closest. I might note that there are sects within objectivism as well. We belong to the correct one. But there are others that would probably not very much like this entire project. So.
Excellent. Do we have another question, Lawrence? Perfect.
I guess my question's a follow-on of that. And also, I guess, a follow-on of the question I asked Rob earlier with the Lego session. Because he talks about, take what you want and pay for it. And the cost of what you're buying is sort of a function of your definition of truth, justice, the existence of God, etc. So I guess could it be said that no one needs, if you subscribe to an absolutist framework and you believe that you have hashed out your beliefs in a one-to-one, function to reality, then it wouldn't necessarily be right to say that one sect is closer to objectivism than another, but rather that there is a correct answer, and there's disagreement among objectivists among, whether God is real, what the exact definition of truth is, et cetera. And maybe, would you agree that Ayn Rand provides a roadmap, but the true definition of truth and justice is sort of a human reasoning process, and someone is correct?
Well, let me take it, because I know if David does, it'll be truly accurate, philosophical, detailed, and take a long time. So, but I think the point you just made is the heart of what open objectivism is. It's that reality is achievable, understanding it is achievable, but it's a process of objective thinking that Rob framed, which is both the purpose of seeking truth and a method that you go about it. But certainty is contextual, and you have to go keep doing that. That's very different than a sect that says, Rand was right about everything, these are the facts, that's it. That's my quick summary. So that's why we say we're closer to the proper interpretation.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So I had trouble hearing the question. I meant to get hearing aids before I got here, but there's now too many choices. We should just have a monopoly or something, No, I'm kidding. But anyhow, if it's about open objectivism, I kind of started this fight 35 years ago. Oh my God. Because I loved objectivism from the time I read The Fountainhead in high school, because there were these exceptional characters who were discovering things, inventing things, acting freely with, not looking over their shoulder at whether someone else approved or not. I thought, yeah, that's for me. And then I got involved, but it came to a crux where I coined the word, look, objectivism is not a closed philosophy. And someone on the other side, a prominent leader, said, yes, it is. I said, well, I'm out of here. That's not what I signed up for. And but I truly, to this day, do not understand how anyone can think that Ayn Rand had the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. and that so we can start the proceedings now. I think everything she said, or with very, very few exceptions, is true. But the whole truth, come on. There's a big world out there, and a lot of it is relevant to a philosophy. So I'm not a good person to represent the conflict because I waged one side of it for so long, but I'm more committed. So,
And both Jay and David are going to be available for the entirety of the rest of the conference, so I'm sure you have plenty of questions. But let's give them one more round of applause for this really, really exciting project.
And I would like to, we are the first session with this printed copy. And the Atlas Society's roots are all over generating this. It was John Agliolora, David, me, and then we had lots of different people. Richard connected us with Brad Thompson. Stephen, we take a lot of his stuff. And our board members fully support it. So what I'd like to do is, if we can, get a copy of this and we get a picture at some point. Maybe we can schedule that for later and just everybody be here, because I want this to be part of what we can publicize, because I really want to thank everybody, and I especially thank David, all the scholars, because I am a plagiarist and my life is enriched by this, and I'm absolutely over the top excited about how to progress with this. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. You can stay connected with all of the Atlas Society's content by hitting that subscribe button below.